so many avenues through which your work gets questioned. Body cams and streetlight cams and cities where they have cactus cams.
You know, I'm the first police chief from outside of Knoxville ever. And it's something that you all, again, Avero has helped us with, knowing that we had a professional that was looking out for our best interests, the fiduciary, if you will, looking out for our best interests is really important. We're on path to have the lowest amount of violent crime in decades. We have a new virtual simulation system. It makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. The Tennessee-Georgia game, which we literally had 110,000 people, and we had an automated drone set up on top of our public safety building, and a call for service would come out, and that drone is being dispatched, it's flying itself.
What is the role of technology and accountability, specifically with reducing crime and making people do the right thing?
Welcome to another episode of Untangled, where we explore the intersection of technology and public service. I'm your host, Abhijit Verekar, founder and CEO of Avero Advisors. Before we dive into today's incredible conversation, if you're new to the channel or if you find value in these discussions about government technology and innovation, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss an episode. And if today's content resonates with you, a quick like really helps us reach more people who are passionate about transforming public sector operations through technology. Today, we have a truly exceptional guest joining us. When I first began working with the Knoxville Police Department on their technology strategic plan, I knew we were partnering with someone special. But meeting Chief Paul Noel confirmed just how transformative leadership can be when combined with the right vision for innovation. Chief Noel was sworn in as Knoxville's 27th Chief of Police in June 2022, bringing with him over 25 years of progressive leadership experience from the New Orleans Police Department. But what makes his story truly compelling isn't just his impressive resume, it's his proven track record of using technology and data to drive real, measurable change in public safety. In New Orleans, Chief Noel took a homicide division with a 36% solve rate and transformed it to 54% through strategic culture changes and innovative approaches. He created the nationally acclaimed EPIC program, Ethical Policing is Courageous, which won the prestigious Hayes Award from the Police Executive Research Forum. That program evolved into the ABLE project, and under his leadership, KPD became the first law enforcement agency in Tennessee to join his groundbreaking initiative. But here's what really gets my attention as someone who works in government technology. The results speak for themselves. In 2024, under Chief Noel's leadership, KPD achieved a 45% reduction in non-fatal shootings and brought murders down to 23, well below the 5-year average of 31. Project TLC, their place-based strategy initiative, has had 0 shootings in its pilot zone since November 2023. These aren't just statistics. These represent lives saved and communities made safer through the intelligent application of technology and data-driven policing. Today, we're diving deep into Chief Noel's 4 cornerstone priorities: crime, community, culture, and career development. We'll explore how cutting-edge technology like virtual training simulators, real-time crime briefings, and predictive analytics are reshaping modern law enforcement. We'll discuss the challenges of implementing ABLE training, the success of community partnerships, and how departments can balance surveillance capabilities with privacy concerns. This conversation is particularly relevant for anyone interested in how technology can transform public sector operations, drive accountability, and ultimately serve communities better. Whether you're a tech professional, a government leader, or simply curious about the future of policing, this episode offers insight into one of the most successful police modernization efforts happening in America today. So let's welcome Chief Paul Noel and dive into this fascinating discussion about modern policing, innovation, and the power of technology to create safer communities.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of Avero Live. Today's guest is a very special friend of mine and an important person in the city of Knoxville, if not beyond Knoxville. My good friend, Paul Noel. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Paul, let's start with your introduction. You're the 27th Chief of Police for the city of Knoxville, and you spent 20 plus years with the city of New Orleans, and you've been with Knoxville since 2022?
A little over 3 years now.
A little over 3 years. And your impact on crime, community, culture, and the career development in the city of Knoxville's PD has been talked about nationally. So tell us a little bit about your 4 cornerstone priorities that you talk about and why those are the most important to you.
Sure. So, starting off, I think, I'm the first police chief from outside of Knoxville ever, which is pretty significant. Also was, pretty challenging. But I think, really, goes into, why I was brought in. And, we were struggling a little bit with violent crime and other issues. You got a peek behind the scenes. Our technology was struggling. And, what we're really trying to do is, really, make Knoxville a much safer place, but do so in a way where we really brought the community involved in that, but also a big analytical approach as well, right? And there's a perception of safety, but we also need to make sure our officers are in the right place at the right time doing the right things. And that's something that's really, really important to me.
Yeah, and we started working together. Avero did an IT strategic plan for the city of Knoxville's PD, I think around 2023, where we laid out together this vision you had for not just what you had seen in New Orleans, but what you've seen nationally, and how that can be deployed in a place like Knoxville, because, things aren't always apples to apples. What worked for NOLA wouldn't necessarily work for Knoxville. But what's been impressive is to watch you deliver results, technology or not. 45% drop in non-fatal shootings in 2024. Murders are below 5-year average.
Yes.
And, tell us a little bit about how technology played a role, if at all, in these things, or was it just leadership and better processes?
Well, I think it was everything. And, murders, we have 9 murders so far this year. And the year, I came in, the city had 42 murders. And think about that. Like we started thinking about 2026 already, and we're on path to have a record year, like the lowest amount of violent crime in decades in the city of Knoxville. It really is. And so I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Leadership certainly plays a role, but it's not just me. We have an amazing team. And, I think what we did was we empowered our team. Mm-hmm. We empowered our team beyond me to make decisions and to lead. But technology plays a huge role in it because, the exciting thing about Knoxville is, we have a gang problem, we have a violent crime problem, but it's very small and very concentrated. Yeah. So what using analytics, really helped us really drill down and to learn who these individuals are, learn where they are, what they're doing, and then we attacked. And we went directly at them, and a lot of these fellas are in jail. A lot of these fellas are in jail or they're gone. Wow. And, we were some individuals we were focusing on, especially some violent criminals from Detroit. Mm-hmm. And we don't know where they are, but they're not in the state of Tennessee. They left because they knew that we were coming right at them. And that's something that's a little harder to do in a bigger city because, what we're doing here is just really not scalable, but we can make it happen here. And the exciting thing, AV, is we really only just starting to scratch the surface.
Yeah. So you mentioned when you got here, technology wasn't quite there, right, for the things you wanted to do. And yet, 3 years later, you're tracking down violent criminals using technology. I know you're doing a lot of things in Knoxville. There's a lot of tech projects underway. But how are you delivering results while these major projects are already in the works? I mean, they're not done, but your results are showing up.
Well, I think the first thing, when I came in, from the New Orleans Police Department, that wasn't known as the most technologically advanced department in the country. When I came in here, I was a little surprised at kind of how, how behind the scenes we were and how dated everything was. So the first thing we started doing, we did a lot of things analog, right? We did a lot of things analog and just bringing the team together and just trying to measure what we could. Right, we couldn't measure everything we wanted, but there were some things we could measure. And we started measuring those and looking at those. And the analytics team was first class. Yeah. They were really first class. And we slowly started bringing in these tools. And as we've built layers on top of layers, we've slowly gotten better. And then when we brought Avero in, it was really a game changer for us because it really helped take our department to the next level. And now, for the first time, I think we could see a process and we could see a path and where we're going. And before, we were just cobbling things together. And now we have a process.
Well, and thank you for the kind words. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. Needs leadership to believe and mean it when they say they want to modernize and change things and understand that it's not just about the brick and mortar technology piece, right? You and I have talked about this before, how important leadership is in changing a culture, getting people to adopt an outsider.
Yes.
And the new ideas that you bring. And your ideas aren't just from New Orleans. You're a well-read man. Mm-hmm. We share a lot in common in terms of the books we read. So I understand that you've got some ancient wisdom you're applying to the modern workforce. Talk to me a little bit about that, because I can't imagine it being easy for you to come from New Orleans. You were not chief there, but you were close to the top. And then you get brought into Knoxville to solve some very challenging problems. What were those early days like, and how did you lean on your training and self-motivation and all the books you've read to dig deep and get this done?
So I try not to think about that first year, So, I came in, I was the number 2 in New Orleans for 7 years. And it's easy to be the number 2. Yeah. And I think back of all the times when I was like, man, why didn't the boss do this? Or why did he just should have done this? And I get here and it's like, I see why now. But, the first year was rough because, we're pushing a lot of change through. I wasn't the first outside chief ever because things were going great. Yeah. But we had a great team. And, I leaned upon a network of police chiefs from all across the country that I built relationships with, chiefs that are on CNN right now, chiefs like, Chuck Ramsey from Philadelphia, Ed Flynn from Milwaukee, Michael Harrison from Baltimore. And I was on the phone with those people at night and just reassuring me that, that I was going in the right direction. And we slowly started changing the department. And when you get those small wins built into bigger wins. And I think the bigger thing was for our department is they wanted to know what direction they were going in. And I think really people appreciate leadership. People appreciate accountability as long as it's consistent and as long as they understand the system. And, I read every night, we talk about reading. I read on a regular basis. In fact, the Bar Association just asked me to do a book review. So I'm, kind of figuring out what I'm going to do with that. But we do a quarterly reading program at KPD, and we read different books. And it's something that's really helped shape my foundation. And not just leadership books, we read novels, other things like that. But I think it's important that our future leaders be well-rounded. I know you're very well-rounded. I'm well-rounded. That's really important for leadership.
So let's talk about culture change again. And, like I've noted this breaking the blue wall thing that I think you've talked about in the past. What does that mean to you, and why do we keep talking about breaking something to make culture change?
So, the ABLE program, really goes back to my time in the New Orleans Police Department. And, the New Orleans Police Department has certainly seen its ups and downs, a lot of good, also a lot of bad. But we also could learn more from our mistakes than we can sometimes from our successes. Right. And, we saw down in New Orleans that we were enabling bad behavior by looking the other way. And we brought in academics from across the country who have studied what they call active bystandership and passive bystandership. One of them, Dr. Irvin Staub, was a Holocaust survivor. And this is something he studied. And really a lot of the roots of this, go back to the Holocaust in 1930s Germany. And we brought in community activists, and we really put together a program that teaches officers how to intervene and stop bad behavior before it occurs. And this is something that the airline industry has been using for a while. The medical field has been using for a while. And I really think it's very, it has applications, I think, in a wide variety of different professions. And we built that in New Orleans. We called it EPIC, Ethical Policing is Courageous. And I remember the day the George Floyd murder occurred, we started receiving calls from all across the country, from CNN, national news outlets. They wanted to talk about our program. And then since then, it was born into ABLE, Active Bystandership for Law Enforcement, out of Georgetown University. And it's in almost every state across the country, including New York City Police Department, Los Angeles Police Department, all over. And it's something that has really caught on. And I really think it's gone a long way to make police officers aware of steps they need to take to prevent misconduct.
So I want to try and apply that to business or everyday life, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, it's the concept of if something bad is happening and a group standing around, no one's going to move because they think someone else ought to do it.
Yes.
And it happens a lot in the business life too. You send a group email saying, hey, why isn't this done? You don't get a response because someone else is going to respond to it unless you call somebody out. So what is the ABLE program? What does it teach, basically?
So it teaches officers the tools to intervene. So like they say in sales, sales covers sins, right? Well, the same thing in policing. One of the problems we had in New Orleans was, there's such a drive to lower crime that the drive to lower crime really kind of covered up misconduct, and police leaders looked the other way if officers weren't doing what they're supposed to do, as long as they were getting the results, right? So what we teach officers how to intervene, how to recognize those signs, because most people think that they're going to be an active bystander, but the research overwhelmingly shows that they're not. They've done countless studies. The Milgram experiment is a great example of that, of where they've replicated this experiment over and over again, and most people fail to intervene, even in situations where someone's life could be in danger. Mm-hmm. They fail to intervene. It's because we're not wired naturally to step in, and that's why you see scandals happen in law enforcement, but also in the corporate world. Yeah. You see scandals because there's a drive for success, and it's easier to look the other way. And what happens with leadership is when you look the other way, you enable that bad behavior, and you allow it to not only continue, but to force multiply. Yeah.
And so we talked about accountability, and I heard something this morning we were in a meeting where accountability is a gift. You don't hold people accountable. You let them have accountability.
Yes.
Right. And then they own it themselves. What's the role of technology in accountability? And because we're talking about body cams and streetlight cams, and I've been in cities where they have cactus cams, yes. and the citizenship is always against these things, but they also want you to stop crime. Yeah. What is the role of technology and accountability, specifically with reducing crime and making people do the right thing?
So the first thing with that is accountability starts at the top. So it starts with me. So I have no problem sitting there with my team when I make a mistake and acknowledging that. But in law enforcement, you messaged all of the different cameras we have. Well, that really could be such a false sense of security because no one's watching all of this video, right? So where technology could come into play, and it's something that you all, again, Avero has helped us with, is to have an application that allows us to go in and randomly audit this body-worn camera footage and really take a look at it and check what our officers are doing, not to get them in trouble, but to change behavior. And that's when you go back to the ABLE program. It's not about getting people in trouble. It's about changing behavior so these bad habits don't continue, which could ultimately cause an officer to lose their job or, worse, maybe go to prison. And so that's what we're trying to build here in a profession. What you're seeing now with generative AI is the ability for AI now to start taking a look and maybe watching hundreds of hours of body-worn camera video, or thousands of hours of video, and telling a human should go watch this video. Because you may have, you take an average call for service that we have. You may have 4 officers on the scene for an hour. Well, that's 4 hours of body-worn camera somebody would have to watch. Not really feasible, right? So how can technology continue to allow, for us to be more efficient? And then if we see something, in that video that's a problem, we fix it right away before the officer even gets in trouble. It doesn't even need to be a disciplinary issue. Yeah. It just could be say, hey, we saw this, don't let it happen again. And if it continues, then it becomes discipline.
So, Paul, let's talk about, we mentioned 45% drop in crime and only 5 murders this year, knock on wood. How are you guys tracking these stats? Like, what's the mechanism? Because I know we've helped you pick a records management system. Prior to that, you had 3 or 4 different ones. Again, in the absence of a specific source of truth, how are you guys tracking this?
So that's a great question. So, we have a new RMS system that's going to be coming online, a records management system that'll be coming online. But, we're still tracking using our legacy systems. But some of the data that I want to track, we're still tracking in a very analog way, right? Like the number of, people who have been shot. Like our system will only allow us to track the number of shooting incidents that we have. So if we have, one shooting incident with 3 people shot, now we don't have those here,
right.
but we could, right? We want to be able to track the number of victims.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're tracking some of those things, we really kind of going in and tracking manually. But one of the things that I found, if the boss wants something to be done, like they're going to figure out a way to make it happen. Right. So some of these things, we're going in manually and making sure that, we're hand counting. And the beauty of being in a city like Knoxville with violent crime being so low is, we can hand count incidents of crimes at like under 100, right?
Yeah.
If we have, 45 non-fatal shootings, we could go in and hand count those. A lot harder when you're talking about car burglaries and other things like that. Eventually, when we get our new RMS system online, our data quality is going to be much better. But like when I first came in, very concerned with the data quality. That's why with some of these incidents, we actually hand count every week.
Yeah, and I think you as you bring that system online, a big part of that will be cleaning up the data. So
Yes.
your analytics and you're talking about doing AI-enabled stuff as much as possible.
But if the boss values it, it'll get done right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, like when I came in, I was very, very concerned with our data quality. And we put an emphasis on making sure every day now, Monday through Friday, we sit down at 9 a.m. with the team and we go over every crime that occurred in the last 24 hours. And now we have that down. We could do that in about 20, 25 minutes. But part of that is for situational awareness. But the other part is to really make sure our data quality is right. Because if a car is stolen, but it turns out it's been towed, we need to go back and correct that.
Right.
Or if we missed a car that was stolen, we didn't get it right, we need to go back and fix it.
Yeah. What about tech-enabled community engagement? I know that's another, it's one of your 4 pillars, right?
Yes.
Community. And again, kudos to you for how quickly you have deployed all of these things in practice. Not just one done well, you've done them all well. And as a citizen, I can see it happen, right? Not just as a colleague and a friend. What was the community engagement like before, and how did you deploy some tools to make that better?
So the one thing like with community engagement is like, when I came in, like we had to do everything.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, where it's a little harder to engage with tech, because like so much, especially in a city like Knoxville, as personal as Knoxville is, is community engagement is one of those things that still needs to be done one-on-one. So we really tried to do everything. So it requires me and my team to get out as much as possible and interact with people, but also, using social media, using virtual meetings and other things like that to try to get our message out to as many people as possible. So, and then, with communication, there's also an internal component as well. So I think we've done a decent job of getting out and trying to interact with as many people as possible. But the challenge has been, you go to, you interact with the community. They're not really interested in getting a lot of like crime statistics. It's really, how do you involve them in the process? So we've used online surveys. We've tried to really get as much information to the community, but also try to collect as much information from them as well. So I don't know if that quite answers your question, but it's one of those things where, you have to hit at every level and you have to be good at it at every level.
And I think that's the best part of the answer, right? Because you can do so much, and as a police officer, it's never enough.
No.
And I don't think that's why you do it, to make it enough, but so many avenues through which your work gets questioned.
And the challenge is too, AV, I think the bigger challenge in this business, and maybe in yours as well, is the audience tends to be the same. Like we could have, I kind of say this jokingly, we could have a meeting on Christmas Eve and like the same people are going to come out. Yep. So how do you get outside of that circle? Because if not, what happens, it becomes an echo chamber, right? Like you got a core group of people that love what we do no matter what. And you have a core group of people that hate everything we do, no matter whatever it is. But how do you get into that 90% in the middle? And I think that's the big challenge we have right now is how do you engage with that 90% that really is not really worried about what we're doing because they don't have a problem in their neighborhood. And that's why we try to get out and walk and talk to people. We try to engage with people we normally would not interact with. Like, we are trying to build a podcast. It's another means to communicate. But one thing, I do a small segment on all 3 of the major TV channels. And this is something that's just, I am so fascinated with this. I'll go on TV and, we do an Ask the Chief segment. We'll do a couple minutes of Q&A. And people will see me all the time. They're like, man, I saw you on TV. I love what you did on TV. Then I'll ask them, what did I say? And they never know, but they loved it. Right?
Yeah.
So it shows you the power of that medium as well. It's very, very powerful. And very rarely will they remember even what I said.
Yeah.
Sometimes they might be watching with the volume down.
Yeah.
But they see you on there, and that seeing you, gives you validity. And I think it really helps build trust. So, but like the important piece of that is try to hit as many venues as you can.
And the perception, right? Again, you see someone in a uniform walking around, depending on what news you've been watching and what newspaper you've read, they color you in a certain way.
Yes.
And so I think getting out to the public and telling your own story and your philosophies is great.
And just being accessible as well. So, I was in Trader Joe's on Sunday, and I'm running in before NFL comes on to get some snacks and stuff to get ready for football. And somebody grabbed me and was asking me a question about something, and somebody else came up and it was like, I love what you do. And I just think it's like moments like that that you multiply that 1,000 times. That's Bill's where we need to get to be. So it's not one thing; it's everything, and you have to do it all well.
At the same time.
All at the same time. And that's why it's so important to have a great team, because I can't do it all myself, nor should I, because I'm not going to be the chief 20 years from now. One of these young kids are going to be the chief 20 years from now. And they need to be able to not only see the value in this, but they need to be able to do it well.
Yeah. So let's switch gears to building the modern police force, right? We've talked a little bit about how you came on board, the first outside police chief for Knoxville. And I don't think you brought anyone with you or formed your team. Like that wasn't one of those LeBron James deals where you got to pick and choose from different cities. Like you inherited.
All internal, yeah.
You inherited KPD and all of its pros and cons, right? So tell me how that went, because to me as a leader, right, if I were to walk into another company and become CEO, man, I'd be like, who's got knives out for me? Like these people have been here forever. How am I going to win them over and fulfill my mission? What was that like?
It was tough, and there was some knives out for sure. But I mean, I think the bigger thing is, it's easy in a bureaucracy for someone I say I want this done, and it gets slow walked. And that was a challenge in the first year is, they needed to know that, I meant business and, I was about doing things quick. And, that's one of the things that was a little tough with the transition coming from New Orleans to here is, down there, we move really fast, lightning speed if you had to. And Knoxville moves a lot slower. And there's a lot of value in that. Yeah. But I'm also, naturally impatient, and so I think that was pretty tough. But, overall, the hard part was finding my team, finding that balance, right? I had a lot of really, really good people here, but I needed people that would complement one another well and complement me well. I have strengths, I have weaknesses. So if I have 5 Paul Noels on my senior staff, we may be great at some things when we're going to be terrible in other things. And I made some mistakes, selecting some people, and we had to figure that out. But now we have I think a first-class team that balances each other really, really well, but they're also not afraid to come sit in the office and close the door and say, hey, we got a problem, which I value that so much. But also when we walk out the door, we're all on the same page.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And then you have you set a record of some kind for recruiting a class of 40 plus people.
I mean, we got another class we're starting at 40 on Monday. We're killing it. We're going to have a wait list.
Breaking your own records.
We're going to have a wait list. So when I came in here, staffing was scary.
Yeah.
So not only did I come in with the scary staffing levels, with a third of the department eligible to retire. Think about that.
Yeah.
But also at a time when it was not one of the most difficult times in the last couple decades of hiring police officers. Yeah. And we are shattering recruitment records. We're going to be fully staffed this year We have a wait list to get on the police department here, a waiting list. You know how exciting that is? They have a waiting list. We're going to be turning people away.
Yeah, I know, because last year we were talking about how do I get people to apply?
And we're having so many applicants come in. In fact, I was talking to the young man that's running my recruiting today, and we're actually building on explorers now, which are like middle school kids, because like we've really shored up like the pipeline, the short term. We looked at recruiting from short term needs, midterm, and then long term, which is like these middle school kids. And we're now really working on that now because we're doing so well, but we're not letting off the gas. I want to be turning away hundreds of people a year and only selecting the best.
That's amazing. And this is despite the fact that the sheriff's office has a bigger paycheck.
No, we make more than them. We do. Yeah.
You changed that. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you went to council with that.
We did. So we've had, since I've been here in 3 years, we've had 2 significant pay raises in 3 years, which is really good. But we start off about the same, but because of the cost of living and step increases we get after 5 years, we love our friends at the sheriff's office. I don't want to say anything bad.
No, they do great stuff too.
They do good work.
Yeah. Tell me about the training, right? You've got a great training center. You've put me through the ringer in there. But what I didn't get to do is the virtual simulator that you put in. And tell me about that specifically and how it helps you quickly train and bring people that I would call them, street ready.
Yes. So we have a new virtual simulation system, and man, it is impressive. In fact, I was just telling somebody a little while ago, there's a school shooting simulation on there, and when you watch it, you feel it. It makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, and it really goes a long way to help preparing officers what they're going to deal with and making sure they're ready. Because the challenge you have in those moments is your training has to take over, because those moments can be very, very emotional, very, very challenging. And so we want to condition our officers to be able to respond effectively in those situations, but also be compassionate as well once the danger is over with. And I think that's the challenging piece. So the virtual simulator is something that's really, really important. It puts them in those real world situations. It's also great to be able to take community members and put them in as well. You need to come by and go get in it. But I was just talking to the advisory committee that the police department has, and I was telling them, like, you guys need to all come up and run through this, because it's easy to go watch on TV and say police officers shouldn't have done this, or they should have done this, and then you put them in the system, and then they make a whole lot of mistakes and other things like that because the emotion kicks in, right? So it's important for people to know what it's like to be a police officer. That's why I tell everybody to go do a ride-along with a police officer and go see what it's like to go work that shift.
It's not easy. I've done a few, and
the
things
look,
you see.
And like we asked too, like these young men and women, they're in their early 20s, and we put them out in complex situations. And it's really so impressive. And, we talked about the hiring in the future. The future of policing is hiring these young men and women who could think on their feet, that could use technology, that can make decisions, that can problem solve. It's such a challenging job. And you think of the technology that they're going to see in the next 5 years. You see this in your business. Technology is making a quantum leap right now with generative AI and everything, and it's changing their profession so much. And these young men and women are going to see this in the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years. They're going to be launching drones off their police cruisers in probably about 5 to 7 years. Watch.
No, 100%, if not sooner, right?
Yes.
And you'll be doing a lot more with AI in terms of analysis, watching videos, pointing things that a human might miss. Lots of applications.
So just think about like a police officer, and I could get nerd out on this all day. But one of the challenges that an officer has is they don't have enough time to process the information that they have available. They get a call for service, and they're going out to a house or a business on a call, and all of this information is sitting there, but the officer doesn't really have time to process it because they're driving a car. So wait till the self-driving cars come. Then an officer will be able to take that time and use that time to process process this information. And as generative AI gets better, it's going to analyze that information and condense it down into information that officer needs to make those initial decisions when they get on those calls. And I think that's going to be huge. And like right now, like you go on a call, and there may be a 5-year call history at that place. The officer doesn't have access to that information readily. Yeah. AI could spit that out in a matter of seconds.
100%. And then you before we started, you said you did a drone pilot.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So man, I'm so excited about this. We tested a drone for first responder program here. We started on Wednesday of last week. We went through the Tennessee-Georgia game, which we literally had 110,000 people, in a small area around Neyland Stadium. And we had a drone, an automated drone set up on top of our public safety building, and a call for service would come out. And that drone is being dispatched, it's flying itself. And then once it gets to the location, the drone operator takes over. So picture one of the calls I watched was a traffic accident on the interstate. Mm-hmm. And the drone operator is telling the officer what on-ramp to get on, because if he gets on the wrong one, then it could be an extra 5 to 7 minutes to get to that call. And sometimes when people call in those accidents, they think they know where they're at, but they give bad information. Yeah. And if you're on the wrong side of that on-ramp, it really could delay our time. And we had other calls where we had a dangerous situation, and the drone is is giving the information to the officer and what they're seeing, so they can formulate a plan for when they walk up to make sure they do so safely. It's amazing to see that. On game day, we moved the drone over to the UT campus, and we had it up there to help us with traffic direction, to check the rooftops to make sure there's no bad actors further away, which we know is a major issue now, to make sure everybody going to that game is safe.
So are drones an extension of dispatch, or are they part of your team?
So they're part of our team. So we're building out a real-time information center. Mm-hmm. We just acquired new software to really help manage all of that data system. You were a big part of us getting the right software package for us. So we will have picture on game day here, where you have the city population doubles almost in for about a 6-hour period. I could go sit in that command center, and I have everything that's going on in the entire city at my fingertips, and not only to know what's going on, but able to see that video live. It's so exciting.
So it's in pilot phase now, but you can see it deployed. In the next couple of years.
We did a demo, and we'll be pushing hopefully to acquire the technology next year. The procurement process is fun, as you know.
It's necessary.
It is necessary, but we'll be going through that. But it's something that I really believe that with this technology, with all technology, you could be an early adopter, you could be with the pack, or you could be trailing. And early adopters are already out there now, so it's time for us to get on board.
Well, the flip side of that, though, is early adopters making bad early choices are also failing.
Yes.
So I think you're in the sweet spot.
We are.
Testing it right, and it's going to work out. Tell me about change management, right? We've talked, again, another sort of foo-foo philosophical thing, but it's so important because you're trying to get buy-in on not just your programs, your philosophy, your technology, across generations. Like you mentioned, 20-somethings coming out of the academy, but you're also working with 30-year veterans that need a little more persuasion or hand-holding to do these new things. How do you bridge that gap?
Change management is something that, I wish I had the right answer to. The biggest thing that I faced in my 3+ years here is the pace of change, right? We have an organization, $80 million budget, 500 or so employees. And, when I first came in, we pushed fast and we moved so many things so quick. And I could see the change fatigue in the organization. So we tried to do it in waves. And I would love to sit here and lie to you and tell you I had this big scientific method all figured out. But a lot of it was really by feel. And we would push a lot of change through. We would let the organization get used to it, breathe. Let them breathe, and then we would push more change through. But we have a Gantt chart laid out with all the different projects we want to do, and we're going through another wave right now of intensive change, and it's exciting, but it also can be it could be really it can challenge an organization as well. And one of the things that I need to do better as a leader is not relying on the same small group of people. And because I tend to gravitate toward the players that I have that excel. And you just keep putting more on them and piling more on them, and they'll take it because that's what they do, because that's in their DNA. And one, like, it's not fair to them, but also it's real important to build a diverse group of people that I can rely on. So one of the things that I'm trying to do now is really spread the wealth and spread those tasks around and lean on people, a new set of people as well. And hopefully, with when you go to the career development piece, I think that's really going to help build an overall better workforce for me. But it's more work on me as well.
Yeah, but you love that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I know you like talking to people. I know there's a chain of command, but yet you're trying to give opportunities to people that you may not directly interact with.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, right?
In my office, I just brought in a new young lady that I really think she's going to do great things, and but it's also a challenge because someone I don't know and someone that's untested, but to watch that person dig into a new project and really run with it is so exciting. And the more we do that, the more we cycle people in and out of those positions. So, like in my office, for example, people will only stay in those jobs for 12 months. I will not let them stay more than 12 months, and they're going to rotate out, and I'll bring someone in because that gives more people exposure to what we're doing in the chief's office. But also, I think more importantly, it allows them to go back out and really to bring the skills that they learn to other places. It's really important. Well-rounded workforce is very, very important.
Well, I think it also probably helps you spread your word.
Yes.
Right? Like, I'm not saying that from a prophetic standpoint, but things get translated wrong. No matter how hard you try as a leader, you'll sit there and, say something and gets translated sideways, and next thing you know, 2 months down the road, there's a program somewhere because they thought you said so.
Well, not only that, I mean, like what happens is the challenge that I have in a traditional paramilitary organization is there's many layers of management. And so my message can really get distorted. So I have to communicate directly to the lowest level employees as often as I can. So, we talked about communication earlier. I have to do it every way. Here, I have to communicate through my chain of command, but also every opportunity I get, I need to go and try to talk to different levels in the organization so they hear it directly from me without having it get distorted. So when that employee works with me for a year really closely and they go out into another role, they could say, they have the ability to say, no, this is not what he meant. This is what they're really trying to do.
So how do you do that? How do you get to 500 staff?
Man, so I send an email to my employees every Friday.
Okay.
And it's basically what's going on during the week. But, if we make big decisions, if there's stuff going on, we tell them the why. Always will give them the why. If we're changing something or if something's going on, tell them the why. And so that email goes out every week. That's not something I ever intended to do. I started out when I was as the new chief, we were changing so many things. I wanted them to hear from me. And we got in that period where things had slowed down. I didn't send an email on Friday, and I think people thought I died. They were like, Saturday, we're still waiting for the email. And I was like, well, I don't really have anything to say. And they were like, we expect an email. Say something. So so since then, that's the only one I missed since I've been here, even when I'm on vacation or anything else. I'll send an email on Friday, just kind of going through things from my perspective.
Like a newsletter.
Exactly. Well, it's a lot more than a newsletter. It's commentary directly from me. We do a newsletter as well. So we have a newsletter that goes out on Wednesday, but this is commentary, kind of like an old school editorial directly from me. And they get the why, they get kind of how I feel about things. And sometimes there was something a while back that I knew a lot of people didn't like, and I'm like, look, I get you guys don't like it, but like this is why we're doing it, and tough. We could be doing it, it's just the way it's going to be. And it's just kind of like an old school commentary. But, trying to talk to those officers one-on-one is important. That's why I like the football games, because I have 100 plus officers working. So I go out and I go walk and I go try to talk to as many of those officers as I can. When you walk here, the whole walk is slightly uphill, which is a challenge. I don't know quite how that works here in East Tennessee, but it's a great opportunity to go sit down and talk to those officers one-on-one.
So on your email, do you ever get responses?
A couple times.
Yeah.
It's I have sometimes I respond, sometimes I don't. But it's not really not really designed for that. But I've gotten maybe in about 3 years, maybe about a dozen or so.
Really?
But more importantly, what happens is when I'm out talking to an officer, they'll reference something that was in the email. Mm-hmm. Most of them don't have the gumption to send me a response, and I get it. But I'll be in a hallway or I'll walk into a roll call or see an officer on a call, and they'll be like, "I love what you said with this," or ask a question about something. So they do read them.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, they do read them. They do look for them.
So you're innovative. You've got a big vision, but you're also you just deployed a mounted police division.
Yes.
With what, 4 horses?
Oh, we got 5 now.
5 horses.
5. Nashville's got 9, so we get there.
So tell me about the juxtaposition of these two things, because mounted police to the layperson is like 100 years ago.
So also with policing, the best tenets of policing, haven't changed a whole lot, and it's being visible. It's being out and it's being, interacting with people. So the background, I come from the New Orleans Police Department, which has a massive mounted division, two barns, 30 plus horses.
Okay.
You couldn't do Mardi Gras and all the big special events without them. So I've worked around mounted police my whole life. I've had my bacon saved many times in a sticky situation by having mounted officers come in and help me out. But the beauty of a mounted officer is that they're visible. So take Bourbon Street, for example, and you take 2 officers on horseback just standing there. You could see them from a block away, even when having 10,000 people on that block. You could see those officers. You take 10 officers and put them on foot, you'll never see them.
Yeah.
So, how does that translate to Knoxville? So I love to come downtown and walk downtown a lot and, go walk down Gay Street or Market Square, and you take 2 officers on foot and they're in this dark colored uniform at night standing against a wall. You'll never see them.
Yeah.
Even if you're right on top of them, you'll probably walk by them. But you have them on horseback, and you can see them as soon as you walk in. So there's a perception of safety, but also the research shows that if people see criminals, see police officers, crime will not occur. So it makes things actually safe. But the best piece about it that I love so much is it makes the officers approachable. And people will come up and interact with the officers and talk to the officers, pet the horse, and interact with them. And you could see that on the opening day of Smokies baseball. We got AA baseball back in Knoxville, and there was a crowd consistently around the horses. In fact, they didn't even patrol. They stood there because there was always a mob of people around them. And now if you go on social media, you will see every day we're on patrol, you will see random people posting pictures of our mounted patrol and just giving a blurb about the great experience they had. And you cannot buy that type of publicity. So when you have an opportunity to do something that's old school, very old school, which I love old school, right? That's right? Absolutely, right? And all this new fancy stuff is great, but we need to be true to our roots. And true to our roots is that police officer walking the beat. You've seen the movie Untouchables with Sean Connery. He walks the beat. He's walking on the bridge, right? Mm-hmm. And when you have those positive interactions, when they're proven to keep people safe, I think it's something that's a no-brainer for us. But also, I think it puts Knoxville on the map as we're not a small town anymore. We can be like the larger cities, but still have all of the great qualities of a small town, which is what I love about Knoxville so much.
Me too. And so horse number 5, is there a name yet, or are you taking suggestions?
Downtown Knoxville Alliance bought 3 of our horses, the newest 3, and they did a naming contest, and the names have been selected. They're about to release the names any day now. And I'll give you one name. I won't
Okay.
give you all three. When is this going to air? Is this going to air in
A couple of weeks.
a couple of weeks? So
Yeah.
it'll already be out by
Yeah.
then. But one horse is going to be named Cormac for Cormac McCarthy,
Okay.
who's the famous author who was born in Knoxville. No Country for Old Men,
Yep.
stuff like that. Summit for Pat Summit.
Yeah.
And the third name, I think they're still trying to figure that third name out. They will announce it the next couple of days, long after this, long
before this,
this one airs. Yeah.
That's amazing. And Knoxville's never had a mountain division.
No, I mean, I think they had, kind of like, officers with personal horses for like search and rescue, but not like a urban downtown mounted patrol. We've never had it before.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
It's super cool. And I saw him walking in here a couple of weeks ago. Just, it looks cool. Like you said.
They're beautiful horses. I mean, it's something I am so excited about. I love it. I really do. Just to hear them walking down the street, it's awesome.
And you're going to have more than 5 or
So we have 5 now. You can't get me in trouble now, Evie. I don't want to get me in trouble with my boss.
See what you want.
We'll see. We'll
She
see.
can say no.
I think 5 is a good amount right now. Long term, I think our police department has to grow. We 30 years ago, we were authorized for about 456, I think, like 30 years ago. Right now, we're only authorized for 416, which is absurd. When you really think about it, this area is growing. Yeah. The number of people that come through our area, enrollment at University of Tennessee has never been higher. Airport is growing it's the fastest growing airport in the country.
Smoky Mountains.
Right now, Smoky Mountains. Yeah. This is just an amazing place to live. We really need to look at expanding our police department in the next 10 years. We need to really start soon. I'm having those conversations internally now. We can have them because we're growing. And we're hiring so many people. So as we grow, I think we'll expand that, among many other things as well.
You see that slowing down, like as AI becomes more prevalent, and you see there's being a marginal point where the number of humans you employ would maybe not reduce, but you're not going to get to 600, or it's not going to be proportionate to population growth.
I don't know. That's a really good question, right? I think the answer to that is still yet to be determined. I think there's something that AI could do on the support side, but I don't envision in the next couple of decades policing not being very much a human business, right? We go out to calls for service. We have to, determine what happened with, with poor information. This is very much a human business, right? Yeah. I think there's some things we could do with technology to make our job more efficient, like how we direct traffic for football games. We still do that very manually by having an officer out there directing traffic. Yeah. There's a lot can be done with automating traffic lights and have them controlled remotely. But I don't envision a time in my lifetime where we will have a non-human going out and dealing with domestic violence and, shoplifting or a person causing a disturbance.
So no humanoid robots. Well, I heard Elon the other day on a podcast. He's saying 20-25 years for a humanoid to actually become useful. And you know what they're struggling with? Hands.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's going to be tough. I think this business is going to be very much a human business, and also I think the greater question is, can someone like Musk build that technology? I'm sure he can, because he could probably do whatever he wants. But will humans accept that? Will you accept a police officer who's a robot coming to your house and telling you what to do? I don't know if people are going to accept that.
Probably not.
Maybe with directing traffic. But, with a lot of the skills that we do now, I think it's still very much a one-on-one, it's very much a people business.
And more so as time goes on, right? The more visibility you get, the more your actions are recorded. I'm not saying that's why it's a more human business.
Yes.
It's just putting policing work in a lot different context than it has been, right?
Yes.
When we'll talk about why you chose policing as a career, but, growing up, you're like the policeman is it's the guy with a gun, and he chases the bad guys. And you don't think about policing as being service.
Yes.
It's almost social service.
It is.
If not all the way.
It is. I mean, when you really look at it now, most of what we do is not catching the bad guys. Yeah. It's a sliver of what we do. I mean, really.
Yeah.
It's a sliver of what we do. Most of what we do is interact people and help people out. And right now, we're on the front lines of dealing with opioid epidemic and all these social issues because the government and other entities have failed. You just call it what it is. Have failed to be able to effectively deal with the situation. And now you have police officers that are on the front lines of, fentanyl and opioid epidemic and mental illness and all this other stuff.
And you have a social response team, right? What do you call that?
We have a co-response team where we have a clinician that's paired up with a police officer. We have 6 of those teams. We'd like to have 12. Funding is always a challenge for that. But if we have 12 teams, we'd always have one working in each of our 3 districts 24/7. And we feel that's really so important because we deal with those calls multiple times every day. And putting a professional with a police officer is a proven way to effectively deal with those calls.
So how do you draw the line then? Because there's cities that are completely on the other side of that spectrum where, I'm getting political here, but defund the police, replace them with only social workers. And you've seen the results of those communities.
Yeah, look, I think that, I don't have no problem going on the record with saying if you call 911, you want a police officer to come out.
Yeah.
You don't want a social worker to come out. You want a police officer to come out. Now, so I'm not saying that there's not a place for some of those programs because I think there is a place for those programs. But what I don't like is if you call 911 and say, I need help, you don't want a social worker to come out and say, oh, you know what? I think you do really need some help. Let me get a police officer right there. Five minutes later. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This does look pretty bad. You really need some help. And it's unsafe, so I'm leaving, So I'm not saying that there's not a place for those programs, but I think that at least here in the city of Knoxville, if you pick up the phone, how many times have you dialed 911 in your life? Probably not many, right? A couple times, right? You pick up the phone and call 911, you have an expectation that a police officer, a firefighter, or emergency medical worker is going to come out to effectively deal with your problem. I think that's something that most people here expect. So that's why the co-responder team is so the best of both worlds, in my opinion, is you have a crisis intervention trained police officer teamed up with an effective social worker. And you still get, our whole dispatch network as well. So if you were sending that co-response team and another call comes in, like this is really bad, we can marshal a lot of resources really quick to come make sure that person needs help. There's also a lot of duplication as well with some of those other programs as well.
We worked on a technology strategic plan together. And a big part of, what I think the purpose is to, put everything that the department needs on paper, make a case for it with your boss, with the council. And, with technology, it changes so quickly that you need to have those priorities refreshed every few months. So tell me about your process of keeping up, with how tech is changing the work of policing, and B, trying to make a case for why you should have an army of drones with council, because I can't imagine those being easy discussions.
No, they're challenging discussions, but we need to have them. So, where the strategic plan was so helpful was to help us, determine what direction we wanted to go in and how this technology fits in with what we're trying to do. So normally the way, a lot of this stuff works is like chief goes to a conference and says, this looks really cool and let's go buy it. But it doesn't really fit in with what we're trying to do, our existing systems. And I really saw that a lot when I came in Knoxville, right? We had technology that we weren't even using. And we couldn't even find usernames for some of the stuff. And the only reason we saw that is I was paying a bill. We were paying the bill for more phone lines than we had employees. Think about that. It's what are we doing? Who's using all these phones, these landlines? And, we turned off half our phone lines and no phone stopped ringing. It was just wasting money. So that's why, we really wanted to bring, you all in to help us build that strategic plan, because in a perfect world, we go buy all of this stuff, but we don't have unlimited resources. We have very limited resources. And not only were we trying to be real deliberate about the future, but I really felt we were digging ourselves out of a hole with some of these legacy systems that were very old and they didn't communicate at all with one another. So getting that plan helped us stay disciplined to what direction we wanted to go in. But I think more importantly, it helped us make a compelling case to the mayor and to the city council on this is why we need this technology. This is the direction we're going in. And I think it really helped take a lot of the emotion out of the process. Because I think that's one of the challenges that you have in government. If you, here, running this company, if you want to go buy something, if you have the means, you have the need, you go do it. But we have a complex procurement process that we have to go through. And, you have elected officials who are very smart people, but they may not have the back of the house knowledge of what we're trying to do, and it's really important to help educate them. And I remember, we had a city council meeting where we're talking about RMS and the real-time information center technology, and you and your team were there, and you spoke at the council meeting, and that was really, really helpful to have a professional that, you didn't have a dog in a fight of what vendor we picked. We hired you independently, and that really helped go a long way to help those council members make that decision. And you didn't see it as much in the meeting, but in the one-on-one conversations that really helped out a lot, knowing that we had a professional that was looking out for our best interests, a fiduciary, if you will, looking out for our best interests is really important.
Well, and I was reached out to by some, legislators.
Yes.
To ask specific questions, because again, in the public meeting, it's politics. They have to play the part.
Yes.
But they're also very reasonable people. And you're right, having our background combined with yours and making a solid case for why KPD needs this technology was helpful, because the attacks were very unreasonable, right? It's like, you're going to start monitoring me in my home.
It's absurd.
Nobody wants to do that. Yeah, it's not in our scope.
But, if you look at, what happened, we got that procurement passed, shortly before that, Nashville went forward with a very similar process, and they were not successful, and they're still not. And I think the difference was the methodical approach that we used, on our end, but also with you as well, to try to keep this as business-like as well, and to have professional answers for the emotional questions, but try to steer it back to the professional, the business-like way in which we were going at it, because this stuff can be very emotional. When you talk about, surveillance and some of this stuff, it really does spark a lot of emotions, because no one wants to be surveilled, right? But the reality is that there's, we're on Gay Street in Knoxville, Tennessee. And when I walk out of here and go walk down the street to my car, there's cameras all over the place, private cameras, not government cameras. And there's people with cell phones. I stand out wearing this outfit, people look at me.
Well, they looked at me when you walked in.
Yes.
So like, what did AV do?
Exactly. Yeah. So you see, and, if in the reality of the way the world is now, me wearing this uniform, if I stop and talk to someone that I may know, I see you on the street, or I got friends that live right around the corner. If I stop and talk to them, the average person is going to think, he's about to bust them or something, and they can have a camera ready to film me. So everything we do, I assume everything I do and everything I say is being recorded. And that's just the nature of the world we live in today. And I'm not saying I like it, but I mean, it's
what's going on.
If you live in a city in America or London or anywhere else, it's just a reality of
London,
things.
Or New Orleans.
Yes, absolutely. London is a whole nother level.
A whole other level. I mean, listening to the guy from Palantir, you've heard this guy. He's like, we're the worst company to accuse of for misusing information, because we do this right, and world governments buy this from us. So, different flavors of that. I don't think we're anywhere close to doing that. And
absolutely not.
So, how can tell me about the citizens? And we talked about the two flavors that show up to your meetings, but how can citizens get more engaged with the work you're doing? Because I would imagine that you need the citizenry to run an effective, safe city.
100%. So that's a great question, because I really believe that citizenry needs to be involved in how they're policed. It goes both ways, because we are a part of the community. I live in the city. We're a part of the community. So I would encourage, whether you listen to this in Knoxville, Tennessee, or around the country, is get involved with your local police department. Here, we do a community police academy where you could come in and do all kind of cool stuff, but also learn what we're doing, get to see behind the scenes. But we also have multiple other ways to engage us. We do every month we have a commander forum where the district captains have an open meeting where you could come down and sit down and talk to them. And unfortunately, what normally happens is we get the same group of people that come to those meetings every month, or people come in because they're upset about something. Yeah. And what I really try to tell people is know your police leadership before something bad happens, right? It says that's the same reason like with a doctor, right? You don't want to walk into a doctor for the first time when you have stage 4 cancer. You want to have a relationship with a doctor and be doing that preventive medicine. Know your police leadership and get involved at what's going on in your community at a commander forum. We're at neighborhood meetings all the time. So across the city in Knoxville, and I'm sure in other cities as well, different neighborhood groups have monthly meetings, and we have police officers at those meetings. And get to know those officers that work those beats. Here in Knoxville, our officers work the same neighborhoods over and over again. So the area where you live in, there'll be 4 officers that patrol that area. 2 that work during the day, one's off, one's working. 2 that work during the night, one's off, one working. Get to know that officer. I would love to see people know their officer by name. When I first came here as the new chief and I would meet people, I would ask them, who's the name of your district captain? That's the commanding officer of that group of police officers for their area. No one knew who that captain was. Now when I ask that question, people know who that leader is. That, I am not the most important person in the police department as the chief. It may seem like it, but those officers that are out there doing that work every day, if that's where you live or that's where your business is, they're much more important than me, because when you call for help, they're the ones that are going to be coming, right? And they should know you and your problems. So I would ask people to follow us on social media. We put out information every single day about what we're doing. So if you want to know what the name of our horses are, if you want to know the name of if you want to see the drone test we're doing, or the update about our real-time information center, or the bad guy we just busted, it's all there. So, we don't have many secrets here. We put all of our information out. We have public-facing dashboards on our website. Once we get the new RMS, with your help, we're going to have some first-class public-facing dashboards that will have almost all of the data that I see will be sitting right on our website. On the website. Yeah, so really get out, get engaged, know the name of not only, like the leadership, but of your officers.
That's amazing, Paul. So we got some audience questions.
Okay.
That were pre-sent to me, but it's mostly our team. But here they are, right? One is why are you in the policing business? What was the arc there?
So that's a great question. So, I got in, there was always a member of my family on the New Orleans Police Department. So I didn't want to be a police officer. I wanted to be a New Orleans police officer. And I remember watching the officers, work the Saints game and watching them at Mardi Gras. They looked majestic to me. And it was something I was just really drawn to. And, seeing family members, on the job. And then when I came on the job, I had no plans on being a police chief or any of that stuff like that. And I had a great career, and I got to be a detective and help a lot of people and do some truly amazing things. I mean, truly, truly amazing things, and, great stories. A lot of them I can't tell on this podcast, but it was just a great, great career. And I had an opportunity to move into the leadership, and it was a tough decision, because when you move up into the leadership, you're not doing that work anymore. You're overseeing the work, but you're not doing it. And it was really hard for me, because I loved doing the work. But I was super excited to had some great opportunities at NOPD. The lowest amount of murders when I was chief of field operations in 40 years. while I was there, a big part of a lot of major changes and a lot of great things. I got to work 3 Super Bowls, which was really cool. And then, it lucked out where I was able to come here as police chief, and it's been a great career. But it's a career of service. It really is. You won't get rich doing this, but it's a lot of fun, and it's very challenging.
So, interesting story, right? That you looked up to how the officer looked. At some point, I bet you went past that phase. Once you got into the force, you're like, okay, I'm one of these guys now. Now what?
Yeah.
Right? Was there a moment that made you really get into not just policing, but the way you practice it now, right? More social oriented, preventive policing, as I would.
Yeah, it was, and I think when I came on, the first analytics I saw was a pin map, which was a map on a wall with a thumbtack shoved into it. In fact, when I first became a captain, my office, I walked into an office, and all the previous owner stuff was cleaned out, and it was a wall, and it was full of holes. And those holes were thumbtacks from like a gigantic map, like as big as that
like
wall.
in the cartoons.
Like in the cartoons, it was full of holes. But I think when I was running a detective unit and being able to help people and to truly see people that have found a resolution to their problem. I remember a case, and this is not, something that's like super exciting, but there was a burglary of a lady, and she had her engagement ring stolen, and we got it back. It feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good, when someone, commits a homicide and the family is like really engaged, and like we don't know, we call it whodunit, we don't know who did it, and we're able to go through and figure out who did it and lock that person up. It feels good when you have a group of people going around uptown New Orleans doing armed robberies, and they're really slick, and you don't know who they are, and you figure out, you hunt them down, you capture them. Really, really feels good. It's a really good experience. And then, so to me, I always enjoyed the interactions with the victims and interaction with people that had a problem. And I think a lot of times we get focused on the crime, but if you have a business owner, someone has a coffee shop, and they got a homeless person standing outside causing a lot of problems, and businesses, like customers don't want to come in, that's a major problem for that small business. Yeah. And if we could give them a personal response and make that problem go away for them, that's huge. That's just as important as solving the murder or getting that ring back for that person, because it's very, very personal for people. And I think, they say all politics is local. With policing, all policing is hyper-local. People, when you talk about like in a city like New Orleans, when you have like, 250 murders a year, 300 murders a year, people care about what's happening in their small neighborhood. That's what they care about. And making people feel like they matter, and giving people that personal touch is so important. And I love doing it. And I tell you what I love doing is I'll get an email from someone, and they'll be really upset about something. And it's, and I'll pick up the phone and I'll call them. And it's like, well, I'm talking to the chief. Yeah. And they're not mad anymore all of a sudden, And sometime I'll go, drive by the house and like knock on the door and go talk to them. And it's hard to be mad at someone that you're right in front of. And those personal interactions one-on-one are so powerful.
That applies. It applies everywhere.
It does.
I'm just glad we're doing this in person, not over Zoom. The next one. So what's the biggest technology win so far for you at KPD?
Oh, so I think it's the RMS.
Okay.
It really is the RMS, and it's the records management system. And I know it's like it's basic. It's like saying like it's like what's the best thing on your car, like the engine. Yeah. It's great to have the satellite radio and all that stuff like that, but you need that the building blocks of everything we're trying to do. Good, clean, quality data. Is so important, and having it accessible and being able to use it is so important. So I think that's the most important piece. But then like building out with the Fusus, with the the technology that's gonna streamline our real-time information center and our case management and everything else we're trying to build, be more efficient, I'm so excited for that. But you got to have the basics first, and we didn't have you saw behind the scenes of what we had, and we weren't there.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm just excited about, is just getting back to basics and getting things right.
Awesome. What's the most overhyped technology in law enforcement?
Most overhyped technology
Right now, like September 2025.
Overhyped technology in law enforcement. Man, that's a good question.
I'll take a stab.
Okay, take
if
a
I
stab
may.
at it.
I don't have an answer, but I think as we sit here today, it's AI at this point, because it's unproven, lots of promise.
It is. I mean, so, you have Axon has Draft One, which automatically writes police reports, and you hear a lot push with that. We're not using that. I don't think we're ready for that yet. But I would agree with you. I mean, I think AI is something that's overhyped. The other thing that I'll throw in there as well is body worn cameras, and I love body worn cameras, but we have people think like we're watching all of this video, and we're not, right? And that's where something that's really challenging is that we have all this video, and I feel it's dangerous for me as a leader, because we have all this video and we're not looking at it, so we don't know what's happening with it. But I think AI in the next couple of years, I think, is going to really advance, but we have a long way to go.
Well, you're doing all the right things, right? With the baseline you're setting, with the right data and in the correct formats and the correct accessibility, and then you can layer on AI on top of that.
But also with police work too, like old-fashioned police work is still critical. Getting out, boots on the ground. We talked about the automated stuff and robots. We still need police detectives to go talk to people. Right? And pick up shell casings and talk to people. And I think people think that there's a perfect solution that is going to, like when you talk about our critics, they think this technology, now I only need 200 cops in Knoxville because of all this technology. And that's absolutely not the case. We're still in a human business, doing human work, talking with people, picking up evidence, finding evidence and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, next one is, what is the best advice you got from another chief of police about technology?
So hire somebody like you. And I'm not saying that because I'm here. I'm not saying that like I'm
nice
here.
Nice coffee mug.
I'm not. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's important that it's easy for us to get wowed when we sit down with a sales team that's telling us what we want to hear. And they may mean well. I'm not saying that they're trying to deceive. But, we need to be careful, because in this business, we only have so much money to spend. And we need to make sure we're really spending it wisely. And one mistake can be very, very costly. And it could tie up all of our money for a long time on something we don't really need. So learning what we absolutely have to have, what we would like to have, and what might be cool to have. Learning that and making these wise decisions. And I think the other thing too is involving the line team in these technology decisions. And I remember, being a worker, in a place I worked, and all of a sudden we got this new technology, and it's like, why did we buy this? This is silly. Like, it's not even going to help us, and no one really even used it. And we spent a lot of money on it. And maybe we bought it. I don't know why we bought it, but maybe we bought it because somebody got wowed at a conference, or select Austin salesman, convinced us. So, have engaged professionals and make sure you're making good decisions, but involve the line team in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because they're doing the work. I'm not.
And they'll be using it.
Yes.
Right. Hey, one of your, interviews, articles, you said you're more confident than ever about facing, I think this was about 2025's challenges, but we're upon 26. What gives you that confidence? Like, what do you think next year is going to look like?
Man, so I'm super excited. I really am. I will, say I'm internally optimistic. I think you have to be in these jobs, but I am so excited about the direction that we're going in. We're hiring some great new employees. We have a veteran group of employees that are just really stepping up and doing really exciting work. And I think, our better days are way ahead of us. We're not even there yet. We have a lot of technology that's just not even come online yet. We have a team that's learning. We're doing social network analysis on these most violent individuals and really drilling down on them and locking them up. We're locking up the most violent people in Knoxville. In fact, right now, we're really struggling a little bit in the fact that we've done such a good job. We're struggling to find violent criminals, which is
It's not a call for people to, start gangs, but
it's a kind of like a victim of our own success, right? And the thing that I have to ward off is complacency. We cannot be complacent. We cannot believe that, hey, we're never going to have a mission accomplished moment where we land on the aircraft carrier and say mission accomplished. Yep. We will never get there. We need to continue to push, continue to strive to get better, and also, develop the next generation of leaders to run this place. So, man, I tell you, 2026 is going to be great. And I think 2027 is going to be even better.
That's awesome. I want to, touch on something you said earlier about rooftop surveillance, and because it's in the it's real, and it's just happened last week with Charlie Kirk. Have you guys was that a thing to look out for before last week?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It absolutely is. And, it's something where, drone technology has a great ability to be able to do that. Yeah. But it's certainly something that for major events that we certainly take into account. I think now more than ever now, we need to have that overwatch to make sure that a bad actor is not going to get a position where they could do harm to one person or multiple people.
I mean, what now? 2 in the last 2 years that I know of, right? One, the attempt on Trump, and then last week's, and they were both the same MO.
Absolutely, and it's something that you've seen across the country. I know in New Orleans in 1970, they had an individual got on top of the Howard Johnson Hotel and killed multiple police officers, firefighters, and civilians, and it was, really truly a tragedy. So not only is it real now, but it was real in the 1970, 6 years before I was born. Yeah. We need to be aware when you have a major event, whether it's a football game or a controversial speaker coming to town. I think it's really important that we have that overwatch.
And that you can do that with your drone.
We do that with drones. We could do that with humans as well. Yeah. We could get in again, this is a human business. We could put a police officer, a spotter up on top of a building with binoculars. Mm-hmm. But, having a drone or helicopter really helps as well.
Yeah. Well, that was sad. Last question, I'll let you go. Maybe. What are you reading these days?
So right now, I'm reading a novel. I'm reading 2 books right now, actually. The first book is going to bore you. It's called Victorious in Defeat, The Life of Chiang Kai-shek.
Oh, that sounds fascinating.
Who was the leader in China before World War II.
Founder of Taiwan. Yep.
Fascinating book. Mm-hmm. I'm about halfway through that right now. Totally fascinating. I'm really, really interested in everything coming on with Taiwan right now. So I wanted to learn about
I've been there.
Really?
Yeah, great spot.
Very, very controversial person, but so I'm reading that. The Knoxville Bar Association asked me to do a book review, and I didn't have the courage to do it on Chiang Kai-shek. So I'm revisiting an old classic that I've read twice. It's a book called The Moviegoer, which was written by Walter Percy, who's a New Orleans author. Yeah. This was a classic in 1961. I think it won a Book of the Year award, I think in 61. But it's a story about a stockbroker in Gentilly, which is kind of like a normal part of New Orleans, and really about how he goes through life and sees things. And it's a book, when I read it as a teenager, I hated it. And I read it maybe about 10 years ago, and I really enjoyed it. And now reading it again in preparation for this book review makes me very nostalgic for the neighborhood part of New Orleans, not Mardi Gras parades or
everyday life.
Just everyday life, just sitting on the porch eating oyster po' boy. Yeah.
We still need to make a trip together.
We need to. We will. We need to.
Awesome, Paul. This was amazing. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time.
Yes, sir. Thanks you so much.
What an incredible conversation with Chief Paul Noel. As we wrap up today's episode, I'm struck by several key insights that extend far beyond policing and speak to the broader challenges of modernizing public sector organizations. The intersection of technology and culture change is absolutely critical. As we discussed, you can't just deploy new systems and expect transformation. Data-driven decision-making isn't just a buzzword. It's an operational necessity. The way KPD uses real-time intelligence, predictive analytics, and community feedback to drive resource allocation demonstrates what's possible when organizations commit to being truly evidence-based. For my fellow government technology professionals listening, there are several key takeaways here. The importance of strong partnerships between tech companies and agencies, something I've experienced firsthand in our work with KPD. The need for comprehensive change management while implementing new systems. And perhaps most importantly, the reminder that technology is only as good as the people using it and the processes supporting it. I want to thank Chief Noel for taking time from his busy schedule to share these insights with us. For those interested in learning more about KPD's initiatives or connecting with their team, you can visit their website. And if you're working on public sector technology challenges and could use some guidance, you know where to find us at Avero Advisors. Before we close, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What aspects of Chief Noel's approach to modernizing law enforcement resonated most with you? Are there similar technology transformation challenges in your organization? How do you balance innovation with accountability in your work? If you found value in today's conversation, please give this video a like. It really helps us reach more people who are passionate about government innovation. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We have more conversations like this coming up, featuring leaders who are using technology to solve complex public sector challenges. And make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming episodes, where we dive deep into the intersection of technology and public service. Share this episode with colleagues who are working on similar transformation initiatives, and let's keep building this community of practitioners who are committed to making government work better for everyone. Until next time, keep innovating, keep serving your communities, and remember, the best technology solutions are the ones that put people first. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.